Next question is from Kirsty. I think Kirsty's here. Imagine it depends on your strategy, and Kirsty's on our Kickstart, so she's probably thinking about this very, very specifically to what she's doing. Imagine it depends on your strategy and how much testing you have done, but generally speaking, what does the successful rate on trades have if you if you're complete? I think I've missed something there, but generally, I think I've cut and pasted that incorrectly. But I think what you're saying is generally, let me see, but generally speaking, what does successful rate on trades if you have completed a period of back testing? I think I pasted that incorrectly. Essentially, what can you expect from a successful strategy as a general rule, I think is what you're asking, isn't it? So I think you're basically saying, what can I expect if I'm going to do all this testing, or if I'm going to look at the strategies that you guys trade, what can I expect over a certain period of time? Simple answer I would put there is that when you start out, it can be very different than 10 or 12 years down the line. All right. Now, I ask this question when I'm teaching events. I've asked this question of all my room students, and I'm going to ask you guys this question. Actually, I think it's quite useful. How many of you? Oh, let me ask you this: what do you think happens to a trader's win-loss ratio? And that's the number of winners versus the number of losers. All right. So number of winners versus number of losers as a ratio or percentage. And again, if you know the answer to this, any of you guys that have heard me ask this question before, don't answer. What do you think happens to the win-loss ratio of a 6-month-old trader who's been trading for 6 months, 6-month-old, but they've been trading for 6 months, and a trader that's been trading for 20 years? What do you think happens to their win-loss ratio? Or what do you naturally think would happen if you don't know the answer? What do you think would happen to a trader's win-loss ratio after 20 years rather than 6 months? What do you think would happen to that? Any ideas? There's a bit of a lag on the stream, so I'm just going to wait until that comes through. I'm just keen to see what you think. What do you think would happen to the win-loss ratio of a trader that's been trading for 6 months versus a trader that's been trading for 20 years? Most people think, Barry says increases, most people think that traders that have been trading for longer have more winners. Give me a yes if that makes sense. So most people think that the trader that's been trading for 20 years is going to win significantly more. But the answer is actually that it stays about the same. So I don't win on more trades any more than before. And this is why so many traders don't make it. What happens is not the number of winners that you have, it's your ability to run those winners for longer. Does everyone understand what I mean? So what tends to happen as you become a better trader is your risk to reward ratio per trade goes up. There's no should or shouldn't about it. It's what's right for you. But the stats, and I've talked to the brokers about this, don't forget, I know brokers and people who broke. The stats are that the traders who get better don't win more. They're not able to predict the future, but what they're able to do through, if you think about what I said earlier, not through position size, no, assuming that they're running the same, this is being factored in based on average position size relative to size of account. What they do is they run their winning trades for longer. How many of you who've traded here before have snatched your winner before your target, and then on a losing trade, you've moved your stop or stayed in your losing trade for too long? You've ended up with 5 winners, 4 losers, but your winners were smaller than your losers. So for example, Kirsty, I run one strategy. Yes, better risk to reward, Dominic. I run one strategy that averages a 3-to-1. But another strategy, I run a 2-for-1, because those two strategies have been optimized to give the best return at different risk to rewards. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the 2-to-1 strategy has a better win-loss ratio. But if you try and trade that strategy at 3-to-1, the overall profitability drops because it works in a certain market condition. Make sense? Whereas the 3-to-1 strategy, it has a lower win rate than the other one, but it has a greater profitability. So for me to give you an exact answer is very tricky. But what I would say is, and this is really important, and I think this is important for traders that are starting out, is a lot of traders make the mistake of seeing a strategy that makes a gazillion percent in, I don't know, 6 months, and they start trading it. And the challenge with that trade is they start trading it because it's the strategy that makes them the most money. But what they don't realize is that it's got a win-loss ratio of 30 winners to 70 losers. So it's got a win-loss ratio of 30%. Now, over 100 trades, that means you're going to be losing 70% of the time. And what often happens is the new trader goes, yeah, I'll be fine with that, because they think, well, this strategy gives you 1,000% in 6 months. Whereas the strategy over here that's got a win-loss ratio of, I don't know, 65-35 only gives you 200% return. So what they do is they go for that one. But if you think about it, the traders that are least mentally equipped to cope with this win-loss ratio are the traders that jump on it. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand what I mean? So the traders that are lured in to this and end up trading the worst win-loss ratio are the ones that are psychologically they haven't done enough training. It's like saying, right, I'm going to go and bench press 100 straight off in the gym without building up to it. So they're obviously, yes, they might get lucky and hit a little bit of a winning run out of that. Because remember, the other thing to consider is whatever you test, there's an element of random distribution going forward. So that's why it's so important. You don't just test, you track your trades going forward. Does that answer your question, Kirsty? So I think what you should be looking for, especially when you start, is at least a 50-50 win-loss ratio, at least. Make sense? Now, yes, you might find a strategy that's more profitable, but when you start out, you don't want to be in a position where you are trying to make money on a really tiny amount. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Great stuff.